Greetings everyone, the Christian Marauder here. I'm so glad you all came. You know it's about to hit the fan when the human composting bill was signed into law in both Washington State and Colorado. For example, did you not know, in Denver, Colorado on May 11, 2021, KKTV News reported this. In less than a year, composting a human body will be legal in Colorado. Colorado's governor signed a bill into law on Monday titled the Human Remains Natural Reduction Soil. The new law allows human remains to be converted into soil that utilizes a container that accelerates the process of biological decomposition, also known as natural reduction. Now, folks, I'm going to paraphrase some stuff here. According to the companies in Washington who started all this mess about human composting, you got that right. You're making human fertilizer is what you're doing here. The company's name is Recompose. In their website, it mentions how all this works. What they do is they put the human remains in a steel tube, mixed it into a bed of wood chips and alfalfa inside an 8-foot by 4-foot tall steel cylinder to make about 1 cubic yard of human fertilizer. I'm not kidding you. This is passed into law in Colorado. You know when stuff hits the fan, when you see things like this, how close we are to the end times. How does all this fit? Well, just keep tracking with me here. However, the law has some restrictions. You can't sell the soil unless the compost has been abandoned for a long time, nor can you blend the soil of more than one person in a steel tube without the consent of a persons or persons ahead of time. In other words, if you want to have a married couple buried together, you got to have consent. Where is that going to go? I don't know. But mostly it's just one person, one tube, one container. Also, you cannot use the soil to grow food for human consumption, however, how long will that last? I do not know. So why are they doing this? Well, the idea is to put the soil in public lands and in flower gardens, maybe in your shopping center flower garden, have buried in there. What can I say? We're getting to a sick society, don't you think? So the question comes, why are they doing this? Well, the whole idea of the company Recompose's website states this is to prevent carbon emissions from cremation. Thus, you can save the planet and makes the plants happy at the process too. And it also makes a lot of money to do this. So about 1 metric ton of carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere if you cremate a human body. But if you put it in a steel tube and let it rot in there with all the soil and the alfalfa mixed in there, then take out the human sludge and grind it all up like they do and put it in a bag to be sold, you're making 1 cubic yard of compost, and thus you're reducing the carbon footprint. I didn't know they were cremating that many bodies, but what can I say? Another reason cited by the company Recompose out of Washington, now they're in Colorado here, is that conservative farmers and ranchers from the agricultural community really like the idea of being connected to the land where they were born and raised on. I kid you not, I read that on their website. It's just like this. Well, folks, I got to tell you, forgive me of a little humor here, but hey, guess what? Grandma loves her flower garden, but she passed away. And so what can you do? Well, make human compost out of her and put her in your flower garden and watch the flowers grow. Isn't that just a fantastic thing? I don't know. It's like this, folks, there you go. Here's old Farmer Brown out there. He passes away at ripe old age. And next thing you know, you go to the supermarket and buy an ear of corn and it tastes like overalls. It's like Charlton Heston said in the movie Soylent Green.
Listen to me, Hatcher. You gotta tell them Soylent Green is people!
So, folks, how do you think all this really ends? It's anyone's guess right now. All I can say, all this points out that we are becoming a very sick world more and more every day. And we must be nearing the end when we start seeing states put a human composting bill that'll probably affect all 50 states in the near future. Anything to save the planet, You also know when the stuff is getting ready to hit the fan prophetically, when the U.S. military is promoting Marxist ideology. Some of you may have read about this or heard about this in the news because it's just recently some big stuff going on. And the fact that the military is purging ranks of patriotic Americans because they are now labeled as insurrectionists. Austin Lloyd said that during a congressional hearing. He said that they're got to root out insurrectionists, okay? So on May 15th, in military.com, there was an article by Orina Powlick reported this, and I quote, "A commander of a U.S. Space Force unit tasked with detecting of ballistic missiles launches had been fired for comments made during a podcast promoting his new book, which claims Marxist ideologies are becoming prevalent in the United States military." Lieutenant Colonel Matthew Lomere, commander of the 11th Space Warning Squadron at Buckley Air Force Base in Colorado, was relieved from his post Friday by Lieutenant Colonel Stephen Whitting, the head of Space Operations Command, over a loss of confidence in his ability to lead, military.com has exclusively learned. I continue to quote here, "This decision was based on public comments made by Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer in a recent podcast," a Space Force spokesman said in an email. Lieutenant General Whitting has initiated a command directive investigation on whether these comments constituted prohibited partisan political activity. Wow. You know, the military is to protect us from Marxism and things that are about to overthrow our Constitution and destroy us. And now we have some Nimrod in there who's dressed up in a green suit or a blue suit in the Air Force, some guy up there saying, "Hey, we got to protect Marxism. Get rid of warning about this. Oh, that's extremist views. Don't silence Marxism in the United States military." So basically, what Lohmeyer did was he exposed, in a nutshell here, is that there's Marxist ideology. Critical race theory is Marxist. Black Lives Matter is Marxist. Don't let the news media brainwash you. Look up the founders. They have admitted to being avowed Marxism. You don't know anything about critical racism? Look up the Frankfurt School. This ideology is creeping into the United States military at all levels by the order of Austin Lloyd, okay? And so he's warning about it. He documented it and warns about it. You know something is amok when you have that. So what Lieutenant Colonel Lohmeyer basically was saying is that the military is promoting and adapting leftist practices such as diversity, inclusion training, Black Lives Matter, all this other stuff are causing great division in the military, and he's worried about the effectiveness it'll have on the United States military personnel. And then on top of that, add to this when the stuff hits the fans, when the donkey party hides behind mega giants to silence free speech, silence all debate, silence sanity itself, label it as insurrectionist or misinformation, and only a one world communist, Marxist, utopic, collective mindset allowed. And if you don't abide, you will be silenced. This is, we're reaching the point of crazy town. This is not just the United States. This is happening worldwide. This also fits the prophetic time when lawlessness increases, when false teachings increase, doctrines of demons infest the church and the world, when very few people dare point out the dangers facing us and they remain silent. They blow up over not having enough Chick-fil-A sauce or something like that. But they're just not paying any attention in the church like they used to. And all this stuff is ready to hit the fan and hit them, and no one's paying attention, just like the Bible points out in these prophetic fingerprints. There's also prophetic fingerprints seen in the Jewish calendar years and what they mean numerically, and also seen in the festivals, the feast days. They all have prophetic fingerprints on things to come, a time when things start hitting the fan. I bet you didn't know that. For example, did you know that there are 2 Jewish calendars in use out there? Okay, there's one very ancient that was kind of discarded and replaced by a newer one in the 400 years before Jesus came on the scene, before he was born. One is based on our lunar year. It is called the Pharisee Calendar system. It is not the best. You have to add another month so that the spring months will remain in the spring and not move into the winter months later on. This is what the Jewish people primarily use today. The current Jewish lunar calendar year is the year 5782 or 5782 if you like to shorten it there, which correlates to our year 2021 and 22, which falls from September to September. The next calendar system is older than this lunar Pharisee calendar year that was used prior, and is called the Essenes calendar system, which is actually a solar calendar system of 364 days. Okay, just to get you an idea how this works. So if you were born on March 1st, 1990, your birthday will always land every year on a Friday. It will not bounce around to every day of the week anymore like it does, okay, with the lunar system, our current system does. Thus, the feast days and the festival days will always remain on the same day. According to the Essenes calendar system, for example, Passover was always on Tuesday, falls on Tuesday like clockwork every single year. So the Essenes calendar system that the ancient Jewish people actually used, guess what, is far more accurate than that lunar calendar system. In fact, the current Essenes calendar year is the year 5946. You got that right, 5946, which is our year 2021-22, September to September. So these large numbers, 5946 and 5782, have biblical number meanings, and they provide prophetic fingerprints that connect to Bible prophecy that I never thought possible or ever could have imagined when I ever started this. I never thought Chuck Missler would set me on a course studying this stuff. I was just looking at it, curiosity. Now it's like, what in the world? I mean, I'm actually seeing something in here because I taught myself how to do this. It's actually it takes a while to master. I'm just saying, it's not for novices how to do this. But first, let me give you this disclaimer. Large number meanings are the most difficult to translate, but they're not impossible. That's why it's not for novices. It is a brand new field. There are not many of us out here who do this. And so you got to take this with a lot of salt. And I'm going to present it as a hypothesis to let your mind think and wonder. I'm not trying to say this is a thus saith the Lord and these events are going to happen unequivocally and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not that stupid, okay? I'm presenting this as a hypothesis, as a scientist, exploring it, trying to disprove my own findings. Every time I try to disprove my own findings, I ended up proving them. And I can't, it's remarkable. I think there is something in the scripture here about all this stuff that God put together for the end times if we just learn how to unpack it, okay? So you can use the lunar or the Essenes year, and you can apply their numeric meanings. These do not reveal what a particular year is going to be like. That is absolutely how not to interpret use Bible numbers of these big numbers of these years. You can't use the Jewish year 57, say 79 or something like that and say, oh, there's the meaning and that's what's going to happen this year. That is a bunch of bunk. That's fortune telling. Stay away from it. It's not right. You don't know, you have no idea how this works, okay? However, folks, there is an exception to this rule regarding specific Jubilee years that I found, or some particular years in the upper echelon of the Jewish number system. And they involve the years 40, 50, 70, and 100. It just seems like a pattern that rolls through. So if you know how to put this together, so every 40th year, every 50th year, every 70th year, and I would suggest using the Essenes calendar system so you be consistent here. There is something that is remarkable about that, especially when it comes to Jubilee years. The Jubilee year, every 7 years, you have a Jubilee year, a Shemitah year, 7-year cycles up to 49, up to 50 years. I won't get into all that. I explained some of this in my last episodes here. So you can go back and do your review on that. But it's the 50th year of Jubilee. In these 50-year cycles, there were patterns in history that what the meanings of those years, you can see it in the historical record. It's amazing. You see a template. That is a prophetic fingerprint. You'll see at the 40th year, the 70th year, and the 100th year. That's what you usually see. Hope that's clear as mud. Maybe I get the mud out of your eyes. Maybe you can see a little bit better. I don't know. They seem to identify a prophetic pattern, like I just said. It exposes a template that is seen in the past, current history, as well as revealing something to be seen in the future. And I'm using the 50-year Jubilee cycle. So most folks pay no attention to this rule and use these numbers to foretell the future of a particular year like a soothsayer does. And folks, again, it does not work like that. I rarely look at the meaning of Jewish years. This is how I got started on this. I kept getting all these people saying the year 57, so the Jewish calendar year, the Pharisee calendar system year, 57, 75 means this 76 means that. And I'm saying, I got had enough of it. So I went and translated and did my thing and found the meaning of it by using the prime factor method and all the information that I have compiled over the years on biblical numbers. And I used it to disprove them. That's how I found this. So I actually disproved so-called many modern prophetic voices that pontificate that every year that means this is going to happen in it. It's going to be the year of plenty. It's going to be a year of breakthrough. It's going to be a year of this and that. I'm going, oh, geez, you guys are nuts. And usually nothing ever happened, anything remotely close to those years, except on the Jubilees years and the 50th year particularly. It was amazing what I was finding out. With that, I did notice a few things. One thing being during the certain 7-year Shemitah cycles, up to the 49-year and the 50th year, seemed to point out something that is cooking, that lies ahead in that pattern. It's kind of amazing. And they connect with each other. I found that even more amazing. And so I was able to disprove a lot of these so-called prophecies who took these years and did all this weird, I call it Chaldean numerology, threw it in there, numerology and numerology meanings, New Age meanings, and applied that to their interpretations. And they were all whacked out and wrong, okay? So I disproved all the prophets of comfort and joy, and that all is going to be well. This is the year of favor. The year money's going to fall out of heaven. This is a year of payback. Blah, 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 it goes. So then I ran across the Essenes calendar system from the Dead Sea Scrolls. I got a book. I don't think I have. Oh, it's upstairs. Sorry. It is a Penguin Classic and it was a 2000 edition of the Penguin Classic on the Dead Sea Scrolls translations. Now there's from 2000 to 2022, 22 years, there's more up-to-date translations, more stuff has come out of the Dead Sea Scrolls and more findings. So I'm looking those up now. So I ran across the Essenes calendar system back then, didn't understand it. Then ran into some teaching on it and saw the Essenes calendar system. And so, for example, the Essenes calendar year is now 5946. Therefore, in 54 years from now, the actual Jewish year 6000 begins. That is extremely significant. Why is it significant? Because traditionally speaking, prophetically, it marks there's going to be a brand new era breaking into the 7000 year. And I won't get into all the details of that right now, but just look that up and just see what I'm talking about. It just marks a new era going to break forth. Something big is going to happen. So the current lunar Pharisee calendar year is now 5782. It is 218 years away from the year 6000. That's how off they have got, following the lunar calendar. Why the Pharisees do it is unknown to me exactly, or their reasoning is lost in the sands of time. With that, let me show you the bottom line meaning of the Jewish year 5782, 5782, and the Essenes year of 5946, mean in biblical numbers without any lengthy display or math formulas on the screen. I'm going to give you the bottom line meaning. I can put all the work in there, but the length of this video would be way too long to hold anyone's interest at all. So the Essenes calendar year 5946 is our year 2021, September to September. So using the biblical number system for the year 5946, It actually has two shades of meaning. This will make a lot of sense in just a few seconds. With that, here's the bottom line meaning of the year 5946. And what I found is this. I'm not kidding. This is what this year means. It doesn't mean that this is going to happen in this year. It means there's something to pay attention that you need to look for in the next 50 years. I'll explain that in just a minute. Here's the interpretation of the year 5942, and it says this: a time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of David, have mercy on us. For those that get the mark of the beast, diseased, fall away. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give praise to you, O God. Please note the phrase here, become diseased, ties directly to Revelation chapter 16, verse 2, concerning the first bowl of God's wrath. And it says from the New King James Version this: so the first went and poured out his bowl upon the earth, and foul and loathsome sores came upon men who had the mark of the beast and those who worshipped his image. Remember, Bible numbers need a Bible to interpret, and when you interpret them correctly, they connect prophetically to passages in the books that are unmistakably linked. And the first definition refers to the mark of the beast. The second definition, or shade of meaning in here, refers to tyrants, a mark of allegiance to a tyrant or tyrants. And this context, since it mentions diseases, ties directly in with Revelation 16:2 about foul, loathsome sores coming upon people who have the mark of the beast. That's why I gave it the first definition meaning there. Now that probably might have blown you away, or you're going, oh man, that must be all made up. Not really, just keep tracking with me. So question, does this mean we are in the tribulation period in the year 2022? The answer emphatically is a big fat N-O. I capitalize it, whatever. No, it's not. That is not how the system works. It is a cipher that, as far as I can tell, points to the events that might unfold anytime during the next 54 years. That adds up to the 6,000 years. And I might say it only serves as something to look for. The first mention of these things like this usually indicates a stage is being set for it to happen in the future. And we'll find out, won't we? Okay, the next 54 years if this is actually true. And the pattern could also go up to 100 years as well. I know, because it's a cycle, 50 to 100 as well. And then there's 70, 50. I won't get into all that. I'll blow your mind. I'm going to stick with something simple for you. So the Essenes year 5946, which is our year 2021 to 2022, from September to September, just might point to a near future. So folks can simply look prophetically at other connections in the Bible about this event and how it's coming about, and how those that are alive at the time can prepare for it. Because that's how prophetic numbers work in the Bible, especially these years like this that are marked out. Hope I haven't confused you too much, but we'll keep continuing. And if I confuse you more, maybe the Lord will sort all this out in your mind. With that, let me give you this disclaimer. Again, is there anything to this? Remains to be seen. And who knows? I really don't know. I'm just saying. I'm presenting this as a hypothesis, something to be tested, okay? I'm saying something to look for. It really shocked me. I'm not saying it's thus saith the Lord either. I'm giving you a disclaimer. With that, you got to ask yourself another question. Have we seen anything that causes us to feel like a time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of David, have mercy on me. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give you praise. You feel like that now? Think about it. That's kind of the idea behind these numbers. They give a lot of information describing the spirit of an age. So the next 50 years, this can build, possibly build. So I got to ask another question. Do you see a building up of persecution against God's people and all who disagree with the party line? Have you seen that? Pastors being arrested in Canada, of all places, over here trying to shut down things, and you really feel like everything's coming at you all at once. Well, in fact, folks, last message that I spoke, and I took a break from it because I got sick. I'm sorry about that. I'm getting back to it. In the last message, we learned that this comes about by an increasing of knowledge that overwhelms the senses as one part of what Daniel mentioned by running to and fro in Daniel chapter 12. This running to and fro make you frantic because of the knowledge and the data thrown at you, one after another. Your mind can't process it. With knowledge increasing, that's what happens. With all the data and all the changes so fast, your human mind can't process it. So here's the meaning of 5,946 or 5946 again. A time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of David, have mercy on us. For those that get the mark of the beast are or will be diseased and fall away. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give you praise to you, O God. In fact, Jesus mentions in Luke chapter 21, verses 10 through 19, Jesus warns of a great persecution where members of one's own house will turn against him. In fact, verse 19, Jesus tells those tribulation saints, by your patient endurance, possess your souls. Okay? So again, there is a prophetic witness here of two verses from Revelation 16:2 and Luke chapter 21, 10 through 19 that connect directly to this verse describing the events in it. That is significant. Now, folks, this does not have to happen overnight. The way most Bible prophecy teachers teach is that we're going along and all of a sudden everything's fine. All of a sudden, boom, the Antichrist appears and all the stuff hits the fan and it gets worse, like instant. That's not how it happens. None of this stuff happens overnight. In fact, there is a slow build up to it. That's why the numbers are important. That 50-year cycle there is important. It explains the build up that comes first. Luke chapter 21, verse there it talks about it comes about by wars and rumors of war, crisis after crisis, false messiahs and false prophets who promise utopia for all. You see pitting of people against each other where it says nation rise against nation or ethnos against ethnos, race against races. It is very possible the Essenes year of 5946 marks the entry into this period that culminates sometime in the near future. I'm saying it could be. It may not, but the way things are now make you shake your head in wonderment. I mean, we're seeing this on a worldwide scale. One nation, I wouldn't worry about it. Worldwide, I think there's something we need to pay attention to. So again, the 5946 means a time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of David, have mercy on us. For those that get the mark of the beast are diseased, fall away. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give praise to you, O God. So is this coincidental? Let's see and test and verify, okay? Just keep tracking with me here. Next, what does the current Jewish year 5782, which according to the Pharisee Calendar system is 5782, which is our year 21 to 22. And this definition surprised me equally because I want to test. I'm trying to disprove this, okay? So I had to go use the Jewish calendar, current Jewish calendar lunar system here and try to disprove this. So this is what this says. This is the bottom line meaning. I'm not going to do the math for you because it'll take too long. And this is the meaning for 5782, which is our current year. Before Jubilee begins, the household of God is divided by rich, powerful oppressors who by their justice scatter and divide all with gifts that sacrifice love, declared by their messengers revelations that seek to cause the household of man and church to depart from faith in God through the praise of wrath, so they all submit to representative leadership. And I broke that meaning down for that big number there, and I did all the calculations, I shared a lot of the calculations already. I'm not going to go repeating myself. I was shocked. That's what it means. I was blown away. So note this, folks. Just keep tracking with me. I'm testing this. I'm trying to disprove the year 5946 with the year 57. Let me explain. There is a 164-year difference between the Pharisees' year 5782 and the Essenes 5946 years. Basic math proves that. I'm not going to put the formulas down. So we also need to subtract 164 years from our year 2022 and see if there is some sort of connection that happened worldwide back 164 years ago that lays a foundation for what we are seeing today. Okay? And it'll be in 50-year increments. So I'm looking only at the first 54 years of this, okay, 164 years ago. Thus, the Essenes year of 5782, read in our calendar years, happened in 1858, 1859 time frame. Also, you got to add that 54-year gap, just like we had to do here. I just showed you. Why I'm doing this, we're going to see if there's something that happened worldwide that eerily points to the same time frame leading up to what we call 2075 for us, or back then it'd be 1911, 1912. In other words, does the lunar Pharisee calendar year 5782 match the events seen in the same Essenes calendar year 5782, which is 1858 to 1911-ish, 1912 time frame worldwide? That lays the foundation for what we are seeing today. Is there a connection? Recall in Revelation chapter 1, verse 19. To understand Bible prophecy, there's a threefold witness that is used. You'll see it in a past event. You'll see it all throughout current history, so you can identify the final template unfold in the future. It may not be the same exact thing, but there's a definite connective template. Okay? This is brought about in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 15, when it says, that which has already been and what is to be has already been, and God requires an account of the past, out of the New King James there. What has already been and what is to be has already been. Okay? Same thing that Jesus is speaking about in Revelation chapter 1:19, the same prophetic pattern to understand prophecy. So do the biblical number meanings of 5782 and 5946 show some sort of pattern that relate and connect to each other in some way. So let's look at that. Again, 5782 out of the lunar cycle time, correlate it to the Jewish lunar cycle, correlate that to the Essenes calendar year of 1858 to 1911-12 there. Listen to what it says. Before the Jubilee begins, the household of God is divided by rich, powerful oppressors who by their justice scatter and divide all, with gifts that sacrifice love, declared by their messengers revelations that seek to cause the household of man and church to depart from faith in God through the praise of wrath, so they all obey, submit to a representative leadership. Well, let's find out if the Essenes year 5782 identifies some sort of template that happened back in the 1858 up to 1911-12 there, for 50-year or 54-year period, that is eerily similar to what is going on today worldwide, probably on a more intense scale. So let's look at the historical record in this brief synopsis I'm going to give. So with that, let's look at the historical record in this brief synopsis. These years were marked by the foundational period of the rise of the business tycoons and tyrants, the rise, the hallmark, the crux of empires, and the rise of political ideology called anarchism and Marxism during 1858 on up to 1883, okay? Just saying. Marxism came in 1868 to 1883. Anarchy was a little bit older. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, let's look at the business tycoons. The business tycoons became tyrants. By the 1850s through 1912, these business tyrants, great merchants of the earth, formed monopolies that influence governments of the world, which are mostly monarchies, are the U.S. government or prime minister type governments and stuff like that, motivated them to expand and colonize. Why did they do this? The answer was to steal land from indigenous people, to exploit cheap labor and exploit resources and make tremendous amounts of money and monopolize the market. They influenced governments to set policies and laws so that they could get away with this. So they controlled the media and set forth an apparatus of misinformation through the media of their day, propaganda is what it was, to move the masses to support their home government's endeavors that made them rich beyond their wildest dreams. I'm giving you a synopsis. This is what happened. Look it up. It is amazing, the correlation between the two. It was a time when the great merchants of the earth built their power and family dynasties. It was the era of the business tycoons and tyrants that are in bed with the monarchies and world governments, expanding wealth for both each other or scratching each other's back. This culminated. This was the high water mark of this period. This is where this all came from. It was a time when these major business players formed monopolies and their family lines formed their dynasties of an elite ruling class who had vast wealth to carry out something. They had vast influence with that wealth and had vast power that lays the very foundation to what we are experiencing today. These folks used the media of that day to influence the Christian church of that time to act as a cover for their exploitation. This is well documented, folks. They were big on missionary ventures. If these missionaries were hurt or killed in a foreign land, they used that to pull the nation's heartstrings together to further conquer a foreign land. They exploited missionaries. In other words, they used the church sort of like a human shield to hide behind in order to cover their oppressive exploitations. So the church will get the blame for bringing tyranny and exploitation into colonized land. This is well documented. It's in the very headlines of that period of missionaries being killed. The nation wound up to go do something about it, and corporations of that time period, monopolies, were made filthy rich. I can go into this in the United States. I can show you in Africa. I can show you all over the place things like that happening, folks. That's what happened. Also, during this period of 1858 through 1911-12, there was a rise of intellectualism in the church that crept in during that period that weakened the church in Europe and America with dry intellectualism and legalism that was well known of that era and time. Along with that, there was a rather ancient political ideology that came in vogue through Karl Marx. This was ancient. Karl Marx didn't come up with this. It came up with the ancient empires of ancient Babylon, Assyrians and stuff, where you would take over the world, have an empire ruled with a ruling elite that would help rule the land and make everybody wealthy, okay? And it was called a collective mindset. It didn't just come through Karl Marx, okay? But this new ancient political ideology that came in vogue through a guy named Karl Marx. He propagated what is known as communism. Communism is the perfect tool for tyrants to use to control the masses and pool their resources to conquer the world, so an elite class rules through government, like just how it was in ancient empires of old. You conquer and then steal land, exploit labor. You brainwash through the media and education to make all good Babylonians who all think alike. That's the Marxist utopic dream. Nebuchadnezzar had the same ideology. In fact, Book of Daniel brings that out in my study in the Book of Daniel. And chapters 1 and 2 brings that point out. They were trying to brainwash people to think like good Babylonians, good global citizens, and modernize it for you. Where the masses know their place and rank, the below the elite's feet, who are the benevolent who want to take care of them because they're narcissists. If you don't agree, then it's not good for you. There was what we call a woke awakening of the occult that branched out at that time through H.P. Blavatsky and others at that time. And the worship of pagan deities, especially Egyptian, were seen in the wealthy elite class and seen in Masonic temples to this day. And some of the middle class society were swept into this too. Again, H.P. Blavatsky and others led the way. Seances were big, and channeling of spirits were big in that time. And now we have a rise in the New Age movement. And this all grew in the big elite ruling class and filtered down to the ranks below and infiltrated the church as well. It was also a time when anarchy reached into the world, and it culminated. There was always anarchy, but this type of anarchy was a political anarchy, and Marxism capitalized on anarchy to bring anarchy in a land, to collapse the system, to bring everybody under one roof, one global control. So it was a time when anarchy reached into the world. So 1858 through 1911-12, and probably beyond that a little bit, look up anarchy. Just look up on the period of anarchy in the world from that time period, and you will be amazed that there was a rise in anarchy. People blowing up buildings, people burning down cities. Does that sound familiar? People flipping around and putting classes and races of people against each other. This was seen before in that era, folks. There is a connection. We're seeing it today as well, don't you think? So along with that, it was a time when the tyrant oppressors influenced their home governments with this caveat that all would eventually submit to some sort of representative leadership, theirs, of course. This later branched off in the next 50 years, like from, I would say, 1912 on up, say 50 years from 1912 to 1962, with the formation of the UN. You have the League of Nations and the UN, all that fits in that time period, okay? See how this begins to fit. So we see in the Essenes year of 5782, which is 1858 to 1911-12, the world and the church being divided and used by rich oppressors. Next, get this, folks, I found this out, just blew me away. During that era, the world was going through waves of cholera plague. It was facing one of the worst cholera epidemics you could ever see worldwide. It started in China, then went worldwide, hit the United States in the 1850s on up to the 1870s. Millions of people died of this stuff, folks. Also in the 1870s saw an epizootic. An epizootic hit Canada and the U.S. What is an epizootic? An epizootic is a plague that hits animals. In this case, horses in both Canada and the United States that were used in ground transportation of that era. So what does this have to do with anything, folks? Let's find out. Let's look at what in Wikipedia says on the equine influenza of 1872. It says this, and I quote, an epizootic outbreak of equine influenza during the 1872 in North America became known as the Great Epizootic of 1872. The outbreak is known as the most destructive recorded episode of equine influenza in the history. In 1870, horses and mule power was used for moving wagons and carriages and pulling plows and farm equipment. On October 30th, 1872, the New York Times reported that a complete suspension of travel had been noted in the state. Sound familiar? The same report also took note of massive freight backups being caused by the lack of transportation ability that was arising as a result of the outbreak. Cities such as Buffalo and New York were left without effective ways to move merchandise through the streets, and even in the Erie Canal was left with boats loads full of goods idling in its waters because they were pulled by horses. By November, many of these states were reporting cases. The street railway system ground to a halt in late 1872. In New York, 7,000 of the city's approximately 11,000 horses fell ill. Mortality rates range between 1% to 10%. Many horses were unable to stand in their stalls. Those that could stand coughed violently and were too weak to pull any loads and support their riders. End quote. That's from Wikipedia. This pattern is being seen today in the same countries during the same 54-year period, but with oil and not horses. That is a prophetic pattern. Transportation is affected. Guess what? They're calling the economy is being shaken too, just like it was, because transportation, goods, there were plenty of goods there. You know, right now there's plenty of goods, there's plenty of lumber, there's plenty of this stuff, but there's no way to transport it. Just like then, instead of an epizootic, we have an oil plant shortage, okay? It affected transportation in both Canada and America in 1872 and the 1870s there. In fact, notice today that Joe Biden shut down the XL pipeline and also proclaimed a war on oil. And recent cyber attack hit a major pipeline. And there's a pipeline in Michigan to Canada that is being proposed to shut down due to concerns that it might leak and destroy the environment. They want to shut that down. Meanwhile, Joe Biden got rid of Trump's sanction against Russia. Okay, you following me? And so Russia can build its pipeline without hindrance to Germany. So Germany and Europe can get their oil from Russia. And, just think, something ain't right in Dodge here. Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum mentioned that this could happen about 6 months ago, almost to the day, a little bit, maybe 7 months ago to the day, by the use of shortages brought about by some sort of epidemic, okay? It was going to be used to reset the world's economy. So there are going to be planned shortages of transportation as well, okay? In fact, the Rockefeller 2010 scenario planning chapter that I talked about in past episodes called Hack Attack explained the template would happen, that there'll be cyber attacks shutting down stuff like this, as well as criminals being released on the street and anarchy increasing. Why? To destroy the economic engine of the world and switch all the world to accept a one world digital currency and a one world government to rule it all. If this continues, folks, expect commerce and transportation to shut down or slow down, okay, as their Marxist agenda, New Green Deal, breaks forth. In fact, Tucker Carlson on May 11th of 2022 mentioned this very thing. He said there was a plan to rid oil and gas by means of crisis so that all would join setting up of an ineffective electric car charging stations across the country. It is a nightmare of narcissistic dreams come true, a Green New Deal for them, but not for you. That's paraphrasing, giving a synopsis of what Tucker Carlson said. The ultimate goal of all this is to join all into a one world digital global economy, like I just mentioned, where you own nothing, like Klaus Schwab says, and you will be happy about it. With them, the great men and merchants of the earth, ruling us as tyrants, silencing all debate, silencing free speech, silencing thought, and they'll be able to monitor and track you, everything you buy, sell, everything you do. They want to control your life. They want to brainwash you through education to be good global citizens, or else. You can't buy, sell, or eat. This connects to the template seen in the Essenes current calendar year 5946, leading to the events it describes, the mark of the beast, okay? And also 5946 marks the year all this starts to take shape. It's like a clarion blast of a trumpet saying, prepare, this may happen soon rather than later. This could possibly be the time. Everything sort of fits here. Everything starts connecting. So again, 5946, the year 5946 means a time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of David, have mercy on us, for those that get the mark of the beast are diseased and fall away. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give praise to you. Again, back in the 1850s to 1912, the world was rocked by constant plagues of cholera and smallpox, which is also used as a weapon against colonized people to subdue them. On top of that, they had a transportation crisis, then toss in the rise of cultural Marxism seeking to remake the world communist. And we have a prophetic template unfolding before our eyes, along with a war against God's people brewing too, by an elite class who thinks it is their right to rule all through a pliable governing body as they did way back in the day. Let me wrap this up with this. It is really difficult to get into minute details of how to figure out the meaning of these large numbers and the time limits here. What I found is what I just shared with you. And it shocked me. And it shocked me even more how these fit together with the number of meanings and the context found in Daniel chapter 12 that I shared on the last episode or so. And Daniel chapter 12, verses 11 and 13 says this, and from the time of the regular burnt offering is taken away, and the abomination that makes desolation is set up, there shall be 1,290 days, 1290 days. Blessed is he who waits and arrives at the 1335 days. But go your way till the end, and you shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of days. New King James Version there. So let me go back and pull from the last episode where I talked about the meaning of 1290 and 1335 and plug these into the meanings here and just let your mind wonder at this. I'm not kidding you at all. So let's put these two sets of numbers. Let's apply the meanings for 1290 found in Daniel 12:11. Okay, let's look at this. Again, let's look at the year 5782 I just went through. Before Jubilee begins, the household of God is divided by rich, powerful oppressors who by their justice scatter and divide all with gifts of that sacrifice love, declared by their messengers, revelations, that seek to cause the household of man and church to depart from faith in God through the praise of wrath, so all obey and submit to the representative leadership. Then a strong leader who opens the door by creative works that causes God's house to surrender their authority rule to the disease of adultery with the world. When this man binds a covenant that teaches living responsible to laws that faithfully witness and justifies living in unholy righteousness and unholy sanctification in God's house that unifies part of the house, beheld when the temple is publicly humiliated, disgraced, and shamed to enter into major changes by reaching a crisis or tipping point. A time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of David, have mercy on us, for those that get the mark of the beast are diseased, fall away. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give praise to you, O God. So let me stop here. This sounds familiar with the how longs of the martyrs mentioned in the unsealing of the fifth seal in Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 and 11. And it says this, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, How long, O Lord, holy and true, until you judge and avenge our blood on those who dwell on the earth? Then a white robe was given to each of them, and it was said to them that they should rest a little while longer until both the number of their fellow servants and their brethren who would be killed as they were was completed. So let me go back and read the meaning of that again to get the picture here. 59:46 means a time when the household of God's saints are moved to cry in unity, Son of God, have mercy on us. For those that get the mark of the beast are diseased, fall away. Behold, they seek to crucify us, so no one is strong enough to give praise to you, O God. So let's go back to Daniel chapter 12, verse 12. It says this, Blessed is he who comes to the 1,335 days, or the 1335 days. And that numeric meaning, if you remember from one of my last episodes, means this. When the household of the saints are assembled to the Holy One, when the new beginnings begin by separating the guilty into the fire of retribution for their sins, iniquity, and rebellion, when all are united together to behold the authority of the Son of David, when the covenant promises of the Son of David are fulfilled. You put all that together, and there is a definite prophetic pattern from a cry of the martyrs being cried out and it's just incredible, isn't it? To a time when they're told they need to rest and their number needs to be fulfilled, and all that meaning I went over in those past episodes, okay? And all of a sudden you come to this point here of 1335, when the saints are assembled to the Holy One and the guilty are separated, and just what the Bible teaches in the book of Revelation, in the book of Matthew chapter 25 talks about. All this stuff is culminated and lines up with Bible verses and Bible prophecy to a T. It fits, folks. And again, I'm only presenting this as speculation on my part. God did say that the humble wise will understand at the time of the end. Is this part of that? I simply do not know. All I can ask you is to chew on it. I mean, I'm just a messenger. I'm giving this to you in a realistic, rational way. I'm not trying to make hay out of it. I'm not saying it's going to happen or not happen. I'm just saying it. Put the evidence together, see what's going on around you, because that's how this works. You're not looking at a particular year, and that's going to happen that year. It's a pattern that can happen within a 50-year to 100-year cycle of jubilees. And since the year 6000 begins in the year 2075, wow, that's 54 years away. That's why I say in this 50-year cycle, that's why I did it in the 50-year cycle, it's 57-year cycle. I won't get into all that. But the 54-year cycle from where we put off is amazing. It's amazing. It's shocking to me. You see how this fits with Bible prophecy, and this could possibly happen in that 50-year period to the 2075. However, it may not. I don't know. If it doesn't, that means within that 100 years or so, it could happen. Okay? I'm just saying it's possible. But it's very interesting nevertheless. Or it could be a time where we're preparing for it to happen in the future. But when you put all the things together, you look at the prophetic pattern of the historical record of the formation of the elite class, the wars and rumors of wars they caused to get filthy rich in the 1850s there on up to to 1911, 12 there, and what they did and how they did it. We're seeing it today. We're seeing patterns, prophetic patterns that fit, that build up to an elite ruling class who want to rule all. So if this is true, it remains to be seen. I have no idea why I found what I found, or even why I was led to even do this. Other than, like I said, I had bronchitis and I was bored. I did not know what to do, and I couldn't talk too much without coughing all the time. So I just sat down and go, might as well see if there's anything to this, because the Jewish year 5782 and the Essenes year 5946. Let's just see if there's anything to this. And boy, did I get an earful, man. I tell you, I have no idea why I found it, why I did it, other than I was bored. And it wasn't some divine revelation saying, some voice out of heaven saying, the Lord used an illness, and after my fever broke, just to start doing this, because there was nothing else to do. I couldn't do anything but sit around. I could hardly go up the stairs. It was too hard to breathe. Now I'm better. I can breathe now. I'm pretty much over it. I can talk now. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Anyway, that's it for next time as we continue to explore Bible prophecy in various places in the Word of God, folks. So stay tuned for that. With that, I'm going to roll the video out and with my contact information, as well as, if you have noticed that many YouTube channels and sites are getting hit. And so that is why I'm going to make a plug for Josh Peck's Daily Renegade 2.0. He has a website. You have to join up and be a member. You need to really consider that, because there may not be any YouTube or platforms. So my videos are also going to be shown on the Daily Renegade as well, as an alternative platform. Go to Daily Renegade, check them out. If you want to contact me, you can go to my website. It's afterhoursministries.com. And there I have a PayPal account. You can sign up. You can support what I do if you believe what I'm doing is legitimate and that I'm following God. All support will be very helpful in these dark days, let me tell you. You can reach me by email at bwmelvin1@gmail.com. That's the best one to reach me. If you'd like to support me through PayPal by email, you can use that same email address as well as this old AOL email address. It's Brian, BRYAN, Melvin, MELVIN, #1 at AOL.com. You guys be blessed in Jesus' name.